Hello.
Hi, on behalf of the Doctor Who Society of Canada Halifax chapter, we would like to ask you, since like 1963, because you weren't quite working then, how you...
No, I wasn't working at all. I know, I was working.
You're Baker's.
I was born in 1961, so I was functional. I was fully functional, probably.
Yeah, but we
probably
were
not very good at the bathroom bit, though, but, you know, I don't know, yeah.
Yes, we were wondering like how you develop like each Dalek, because like as they gradually develop through the series, how you implicate that in their vocals.
Don't know.
It just happens.
It does. It does. I mean, I jokingly put the names of the original Dalek voice artists next to the Daleks on the script that I most want to emulate, really. And so, but then I add things to them, like I'll put Pete for Peter Hawkins, Pete, but more cross, you know, and a Roy, but low, you know, and this sort of thing. So, and it also just comes. The brilliant thing about doing the Dalek voice is that you mostly do it on set with the other actors. So, believe it or not, even though they just sound like a wall of sound, you know, they're just talking like this a lot of the time. When you get a bit of comeback from another character, you get an impetus to speak back to them, you know, and that does, in the moment, change the way I do it. So, but you do, there's sort of, what you aim for to differentiate between the different Daleks is, the basic thing is high, medium, and low, really, to start with. But if you've got more voices, then you go into all sorts of other permutations. The funny thing for me is when I was doing the Stolen Earth and Journey's End, there was a chap called Graham Harper directing it. And there was a bit where he was filming. It's one of these things that happens in filming where they spend ages doing something that ends up being about, you know, half a second on screen. And they were spending ages getting the guys in the Daleks, four Daleks, spinning round and round and round, and they're much heavier than this lovely one here, this microphone. Ah, dear. And they were, you could hear them inside. At the same time, they're wiggling everything around as they're doing over and over again. And I had a set of about 4 lines. And I did a different voice for each one of them. And then I said, maybe to give you some alternative takes, Graham, I could sort of mix it up a bit. You know, do the one that was high. I could do his line as low and everything. And he went, what? I said, well, I could mix it up. And he kept going, hey? And I kept explaining it, and eventually, rather rudely, I said, well, it's obviously far too complicated for you to understand, so let's just forget it. So then, cut to several months later, I was walking through Soho Square in London. I always just remember it because it's a fairly iconic place. I just happened to be walking through, and my mobile phone went, and Graham Harper, who'd previously been saying, what, to me, was on the phone. He said, oh, Nick, it's Graham Harper, Gov. He calls everyone Gov. All right, and I said, oh, hello, Graham. It's lovely to hear from you. He said, I'm just doing the edit of this thing. And he said, you do different bloody voices for every Dalek, don't you? I said, yeah. He said, I never knew that. Oh, I thought they all spoke the same. I see what you were getting at now. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. Well done. Bye, Gov. Bye. Yeah. So he got it several months later.
I was wondering, actually, if you wouldn't mind providing a little more insight about, my ears perked up when you said ring modulator. I'm just wondering about the hardware and software you've used to really define the texture of the voice, you know, what you guys might have used early on, how that might have changed. I don't know if it's something you keep consistent.
It's only you and I who are going to be interested in this. You know that, don't you?
That's why I'm here.
So the rest of you, I get your inflatable cushions out. I use a Mugafuga. But he's writing it down. Mugafuga ring modulator, the hardware version, the analog version. You can get a plug-in for it, which is pretty good. But the key to getting it right is, and the reason I use that, it's the most similar to the original thing they were using all those years ago that's available now, really. But the key to getting it right is to send an overloaded signal from the mic through the mixer into it. That's the thing. So, you know, just to annoy the sound engineer, it would be something that sounds a little bit too distorted like that, which sounds horrible to them, but when it's at that pitch going through the ring modulator, that's when it really furs up and starts sounding really, it's lovely. Before that, it just sounds a bit like, which I find rather dull. But it's not an exact science, because each time you set it up and listen to it, so no wonder, if you look at the original Doctor Who's from, the 60s, you'll find that not only did the Dalek voices alter in terms of the electronic effect on them between stories, they actually not only alter between episodes, they alter between scenes. Where, when they just, because of course they used to shoot it almost as live, certainly, but they would do several scenes in one go with, multi-camera mixed with a vision mixing going on, cutting between cameras live. And so, when they went to the next scene with the Daleks, they'd whack all the levels up, and maybe they did it slightly differently the second time, So my pride in my work is that since I started doing the Dalek voices from 2005, I filmed it in 2004, but 2005 onwards, they've been more or less exactly the same technically each time, but there have been slight variations. Even then, you get a different sound engineer and you can't quite convince him to overload it as much as you want it to be. I could go on forever, but I can see eyes closing. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Hello.
What was it like working with Christopher Eccleston and Billy Piper and David Tennant and Matt Smith?
Really good. They someone say story. No? Stories. No generalizations, please. Darling, everyone's marvelous. That's how actors answer questions, isn't it? Christopher Eccleston was very intense about the role, and you could sort of really almost see the weight of it on his shoulders. He took it very seriously, and forever was sort of, between takes and scenes, was sort of leaning against the wall, looking at the script, thinking about it. And I felt privileged that, shortly after I first arrived on set, and the first thing we were going to do was the big scene between the Doctor and the Dalek, where he first finds it there and ends up electrocuting it and all that stuff. And he said to me, Nick, can we just go through this a bit? And he just took me, we were filming beneath the Millennium Football Stadium, well, it's not just football, it's for rugby too, stadium in Cardiff, this big concrete structure, and we were filming in all the corridors and tunnels underneath. And he sort of took me, I don't know, into another dimension. And we sat in this little room that he obviously had as his quiet room to go to, with a sort of big, it was freezing cold as well. It's inevitably freezing cold whenever I'm filming Doctor Who. That's the tragedy of my life, It's freezing cold, and I drink pints. I used to drink pints of tea to keep myself warm, and I'm constantly asking 23-year-old third assistants if I can go for a wee. And they said, no, we're doing another scene in a minute. So I'm just sort of sitting there bursting for the toilet. Anyway, but enough of my old age problems. So there I was in this room, in these catacombs, going through my first Doctor Who scene with Doctor Who in his costume. And he knew his lines. Of course, I read mine, although after a couple of takes, I end up knowing them anyway. And he's acting that. You remember how intense he was in that scene? And he was like here with me, and I'm sort of going, rah, rah, rah. And he's going, what are you for, Dalek? In my face. He was terrifying, And he was always really supportive of me. And when I came back and did the Dalek Emperor voice, when he heard that the first time booming over the set on the speakers, I remember going, good voice, Nick, good voice, And he always tried to find me where I was hidden on the set to come over and say hi and bye, So he was lovely. David Tennant I already knew from before. He'd worked on the Big Finish audios. That's bigfinish.com. Go and have a look. There's loads of trailers you can just stream or download for free. It's true. And so it was a thrill to work with him. They soon learnt on set that if they couldn't find me, I was probably in his trailer having a cup of coffee, chatting about whatever. Matt, of course, I didn't know, but I think he's remarkable in the part, actually. And I love they've all done this to a certain extent. The ease with which they work with the whole crew, because the leading man leads the company and sets the tone. And I suppose that Chris could be a bit stern sometimes because he was very serious about his work, and it felt a lot more serious on set with Chris doing it. Whereas when David arrived and he was dashing around and he was bubbly and he was uber polite to everyone, then that's how it worked. And there's a sort of carefree attitude with Matt as well, because he has that in him, and I've told people about this, that when things could get stressful, and he'd be perfectly justified because, he's doing everything really, the story centers on him. He'd be perfectly justified to get a bit cross or say, I'm so tired, can we just get on with this, guys? He doesn't. He turns to everyone else and says things like, we're nearly there, we're gonna make it, don't worry, it's gonna happen, we will get this setup finished. And he's great like that. Yeah, so they're lovely to work with. Billie Piper, I was a little bit in love with. We all were, there was something beautifully graceful about her, but also very down to earth as well. She was my first Doctor Who love, really, on set. She was very inquisitive and friendly. She came and sat next to me on my first day and started asking me where I lived and everything. I said, do you want my phone number as well? You're going to start stalking me, She didn't.
You sound sad.
Yeah, it was sad. Although, funnily enough, when I was doing another TV show called Lewis, which her husband is one of the stars of, it's a cop show, I was just playing a very small part there. But I keep being paid 12p every time it's on. That's 12 pence. And I was sitting in my little third of a trailer, and there was a knock on the door, and there was Billie Piper. There she was with her little baby then, it was a few years ago, and she said, I just came to visit my husband, and I saw your photograph on the cast list, and I thought I must come and say hello. Oh. So it was lovely to see her. I think that... Oh, no, the last time I saw her big name drop clang was at David Tennant's wedding party. It was lovely to see her.
There's a party I would.
But I'm married now, so I'm over it. Yeah.
That's what she tells you?
Yeah. No. Moving on. Hello, sir.
Hal-Con.